Good evening, I'm Patrick Pock in Hong Kong. You're watching ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Hong Kong's press baron Jimmy Lai accepts an offer to sell a slice of his media empire in a $500 million deal. Ex-Chongqing boss removed from office and under investigation. Xi Jinping's ally is replacing him. And reaching out to Pyongyang, South Korea is proposing military talks with the North for this Friday. All right, we begin locally with news press media group Next Digital is to sell off most of its magazines. Owner Jimmy Lai has agreed to a $500 million deal, which will include the popular Next magazine as part of the package. According to documents from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, the local media giant will bag $320 million out of the arrangement. The balance will be kept as an investment in the 5 magazines being sold. In a letter to staff, the group said the offer came from W Brothers Investments, a financial firm wholly owned by businessman Kenny Wee. We previously owned the Metro Daily until he sold it to another financial group earlier this month. All right, Joel, you'll be breaking down the numbers for us, of course, a little bit later, but tell us a little bit about the significance of this deal. Yeah,
that's right. Well, a $500 million $500 million Hong Kong dollar deal, 180 of that to be put aside into the magazines. But Jimmy Lai, a very interesting character, a prominent democracy advocate in Hong Kong, and only a few years ago was quoted on radio by saying he would be a jerk for selling off his media empire, which he's done today. So leave that to you to decide where he stands there. But understandably, though, employees have been a little bit shocked by this. This announcement came this morning. The shares were suspended. And over the last couple of weeks, Next has actually been taking quite an aggressive stance in cost-cutting. Employees were told a few weeks ago that they would be turned into freelancers, and they ended up striking as a result. So perhaps a good financial move for Next, but no telling where this leaves the future of the magazine industry here.
All right, well, certainly unexpected and a big U-turn after what he said before. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for that, Joel. We'll be back with you a little bit later. Right, now, some patients at public hospitals are finding they now have to wait up to a day to be admitted. This comes despite extra beds and doctors working overtime. A report showed the Queen Elizabeth Hospital is at full capacity. The emergency room and corridors are lined with temporary beds. Non-urgent cases have to wait for more than 7 hours to see a doctor. The government says it hopes to collaborate with private hospitals to provide more beds. They're also trying to ramp up staffing.
It's hard for us to visit the patient as the room's too cramped. There are many electrical cables on the floor. We have to stride over the medical facilities that are put beside the hospital beds. It's like taking part in an obstacle race.
And staying on local news, 3 more protesters were found guilty of rioting over the Mongkok clashes early last year, bringing the total number of convictions to 7. District Court Judge Frankie Yu identified the trio by their clothing and the glass bottles they were holding in a police video. He said they were clearly actively involved in the protests and were trying to obstruct police officers from clearing the scenes violently. They're now remanded in custody until August 7th. Meanwhile, 2 others were acquitted after prosecutors failed to prove they took part. Turning to the mainland now, where sources say a senior Chinese official who was considered a contender for top leadership has been put under investigation. State media reported that former Chongqing party chief Sun Zhengchai has been replaced. And as Samantha Vardas reports, this all comes out of a Communist Party Congress in autumn, during which Xi Jinping is expected to cement his grip on power.
As Beijing gets ready to choose new top leaders, a potential candidate in the city of Chongqing has been put under the spotlight. State media making an abrupt announcement over the weekend saying Sun Zhengcai had been removed as party chief and replaced by an official close to President Xi Jinping, who's been on an anti-corruption crusade since he took power. Reuters' Ben Blanchard explains why Sun is in the crosshairs.
Sources have told Reuters, including sources who are briefed on the investigation, that he's currently undergoing investigation by the Communist Party for suspected serious breaches of discipline. Now, this could be anything from bribery to doubting key party policies. We just don't know at the moment. It seems also at the moment that this investigation is in an initial stage. and it's possible that they may not actually go ahead with a formal investigation.
Diplomatic sources say Sun was scheduled to visit Europe recently, but that trip was cancelled. His last public appearance noted by state media last Wednesday. Beijing is yet to announce what's become of him.
Again, for a little bit more analysis on this story, we head now to Beijing with our China correspondent Dan Epstein.
Well, it's not too clear exactly how or why Sun Jung-tsai has been removed. Some say he may have violated some sort of party discipline and is likely a target of an investigation. He was also mysteriously absent at his handover ceremony on Saturday, in which it was announced that Chen Ming-er would be replacing him. This is very unusual. The protocol is normally to praise the work of the predecessor and then introduce the new party boss. He was also at a very top position. He was the party boss of Chongqing, China's fourth biggest city, and many saw him as a likely candidate to be elected to China's Politburo Standing Committee, the members of which will be announced at the 19th Party Congress near the end of the year. But now the position is open for his replacement, Chen Ming-er, who's also a protege of President Xi Jinping.
Dan Epstein there in Beijing. Now, South Korea has proposed military discussions with North Korea to try and halt hostile activities near their joint border. The talks scheduled for Friday would be the first at a government level since late 2015. The proposal comes about a week after President Moon Jae-in said the need for dialogue with the North was more pressing than ever to curb Pyongyang's nuclear and missile programs. Vice Defense Minister Soo Chu-suk said Seoul asked Pyongyang to restore military communication lines as a response to the plan. For more details, here's Joseph Kim from Seoul.
South Korea's defense ministry announced it proposed talks with North Korea in an attempt to ease growing tensions amid Pyongyang's rapidly advancing missile and nuclear program. If accepted, the talks would be significant because it'd be the first time military authorities between the two countries have met and talked since 2014. Another reason it'd be significant because it would work to re-establish a direct line of communication that was severed under impeach President Park Geun-hye. Now, separately, Seoul also proposed Red Cross talks to restart family reunions for families that were separated during the Korean War. But all of this is a continuation of the overtures of South Korean President Moon Jae-in, who said it during his campaign as well as recently during the G20 summit, where he stressed that dialogue is key to making a permanent peace treaty between the two countries, as well as creating a denuclearized Korean peninsula.
Joseph Kim there in Seoul. Gunmen in Venezuela shot into a crowd of voters on Sunday, killing one woman and wounding 3 others. More than 7 million Venezuelans voted in an unofficial referendum held by the opposition to heap pressure on President Nicolas Maduro and repudiate his plan to rewrite the nation's constitution. Police found the victim lying in the streets surrounded by a crowd of people. The opposition Democratic Unity Coalition accused a pro-government paramilitary gang of opening fire in one of Caracas's poor neighborhoods where thousands were participating in the poll. Maduro will seek public backing for his new government body in a vote scheduled for the end of July. Up next, the latest from the world of business.
Thanks, Patrick. Well, to China first, where the economy is faring better than expected. Second quarter growth figures have topped forecasts and, at least for now, show there's still some life left, despite a predicted slowdown. Ryan Brooks reports.
A better-than-expected report card for China's economy, holding steady at 6.9% growth from April to June. Analysts figured the world's #2 economy would lose momentum because Beijing's trying to contain some major risks. But for now, the usual suspects have kept things on track. Factory output and retail both growing at a fast clip. And while exports have recovered and property construction is booming, many expect policies later this year will stunt growth as Beijing tries to rein in surging housing prices and a rapid buildup of debt, which has ballooned to a dangerous 277% of the country's GDP. But a spike in worldwide demand for Chinese products could help ease that load. And with 2 quarters of expansion hitting higher than Beijing's target for the year, the government may find lower growth in the second half easier to swallow. Officials have been working to keep the economy at a pace, at least until this autumn's Communist Party Congress to choose China's top leaders.
Right now, despite those encouraging growth numbers, China markets were rattled. And it's got a lot to do with Xi Jinping's stern message to the nation's central bank. The president addressing a twice-in-a-decade conference calling on the People's Bank of China to play a bigger role in managing risk. Investors might be reading that as a sign of more regulation. This closed-door meeting also saw the government announce the establishment of the Financial Stability Development Committee. At this stage, though, it's just not clear what that will actually do or how it plans to make sense of the country's complex financial system. Now, while China's stocks were in the red, Hong Kong's market extended its winning streak to close at a fresh two-year high. The Hang Seng Index making it 6 straight days of gains, adding 0.3%. The rise driven by a steady flow of money from the mainland, along with its GDP figures. Next Digital, as we were discussing earlier, announced a sell-off of its 5 big-name magazines, but it saw its share price spike almost 15% in the hours following that announcement. Uber's Asian operations have taken another hit. The ride-share giant is pulling out of Macau. It'll suspend operations on Friday after an almost 2-year battle with regulators. Uber says it just couldn't strike the right deal with authorities, which had previously hit its drivers with major fines. But this doesn't mean it's gone for good. The company hopes it will be able to have a more constructive conversation with regulators and find a way to operate again. Hong Kong operations are not affected by this. And finally, India is in elite company, becoming one of a few countries to start running trains on alternative fuel. You're looking at its first solar-powered diesel-electric train, which is kitted out with 16 panels on each of the carriages. They'll power electrical appliances on board as the train runs between New Delhi and the northern Haryana state. India has the world's 3rd largest rail network, and the government says it's revising its fuel policy so more trains like this one will hit the tracks. I mean, anything is good if it's going to clean up pollution in India as well. 3rd largest rail market, one of the world's worst polluters.